Okay. All right. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What does the Raw general manager and Brock Lesnar have in common?
What's that?
They only show up about once a year. I stole that.
Where'd you steal that from?
Well, I did see the first part of Monday Night Raw.
Oh, okay.
And was that... no, that was a Seth Rollins line.
Really?
Seth Rollins actually said that.
Well, it makes sense because of what they're setting up for TLC. It makes sense that he's already talking a little smack about Brock Lesnar.
They're doing a hell of a push. I did notice. I didn't watch the entire Raw, but I did notice that they're starting to do a hell of a push on Jack Swagger. Thank God. And they're also starting to do a hell of a push on New Day.
What do you feel about this whole New Day thing?
I like the idea. I like the concept. I like their performances, and I think they've got the perfect wrestlers to play the roles. My question is, you know, what the history is with tag teams. I'm wondering if they're eventually going to be just put off on the side and forgotten about, or which one of the three would be the first one to likely turn. Because, you know, eventually it'll happen.
Do you find it a little racist, though?
Well, I wasn't going to say anything. But yes, I do. Actually, yes, I do.
I do, and that's my whole problem with it. It's not like the Nation of Domination. I mean, Nation of Domination was kind of, it was pretty blunt, clear what their objective was, and they had, other gangs to rival with them. With this one, to me, it's like they don't want to come out and say, hey, we're not recognizing the fact that all three of these guys are black, but we're going to put them in personas that make them look all black.
Yeah.
So I have a slight issue with that.
Well, and I'm sure you probably would not be alone. I'm sure a lot of people would feel that way. To a large extent, I completely understand where you're coming from, because I'm going to the well of, could a white guy do that and be accepted?
No way. There's no way.
No. See, that's where my problem.
Imagine the criticism.
That's where my problem is. It should be equal for all, and it's not. So that much. Okay. We're probably not making any friends. So let's go ahead and do do this bit here.
Woo!
Yes. Count for us.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Yes.
5, 4.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
2.
What is it?
0.
Yeah.
What time is it, kids?
Oh!
And this previous message was brought to you by the City Council of Ferguson, Missouri. But too soon? Okay.
I can't believe you said that.
I can't believe it either. I figured, hell, we're in it this deep already. Might as well go for it.
Why not? So this one, on a wrestling note, this tweet is brought to you by the Hall of Fame of SCI Twitter's WB Creative Humor. Stay tuned to see Vince McMahon and Steve Austin do what they do best. Yes. Have a civil conversation.
Yeah, that's got to be a meeting of the minds.
So I got to ask, because what they're referencing is after Raw on WBE Network, they had a special episode of Steve Austin's podcast with Vince McMahon on it.
Yes.
Now, did you have a chance to see that?
I did not.
What on earth is wrong with you?
I know, right? And I'm sitting here with all the recording equipment. I could have been getting some good sound bites, but I didn't. I dropped the ball.
I mean, because there's a lot going on in professional wrestling besides the obvious.
Yes.
And the obvious being actual professional wrestling. We had CM Punk come out on Colt Cabana's podcast.
I've heard something about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did, because you sent me a message about it. Mm-hmm. And do we get a sound clip of that?
Yes, we do. And we'll have that here in a couple of minutes.
Okay. And so some very interesting things come out of that podcast, which I'm sure all of you in wrestling land have already heard. And if you haven't, then we're going to open your eyes to a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And then last night, Vince McMahon even went a little bit further.
He did.
On the whole situation.
With CM Punk?
Yes.
I'm surprised he would open up. I will ask you this. We'll play the clip here with CM Punk here in about another 60 seconds or so. But one of the things that CM Punk is coming out about now was he's saying he is not a quieter. He's making fun of people's spelling habits on Twitter. But obviously his message is he's not a quitter.
So he's not really the voice of the voiceless anymore.
No, not anymore. But did McMahon deny that that CM Punk was fired?
No.
Okay, he didn't deny that.
No.
Okay, well that's good because I would hate to think he would do something quite that stupid. I mean, because they did it according to what CM Punk said. They did it by the mail, so he would have had documentation. I'm sure he kept the letter.
I think you'll be very surprised on Vince McMahon's reaction to the whole situation.
I was a little surprised that he did get fired. Except under one aspect. I'm going to play this clip for you. I've got to tell you, after I heard this little clip of CM Punk speaking with Colt Cabana, that's his name?
Yes.
Okay, so I know it's some kind of a banana or something like that. I just to be honest with you, if I were an employer, I would probably fire him too. I don't think I would want anybody working for an organization that I managed who had this kind of an attitude problem, because nobody is indispensable. Anybody is dispensable, and they can be fired and should they give you a problem. But enough of my enunciations. Let's go ahead and give this a listen, shall we?
I thought when I re-signed 3 years ago, Vince, I told you if I couldn't be all that I could be, that you should fire me. That if I was a fraud and I was anything less and fell short of the mark, I said I sold more shirts than John Cena until I turned heel for you. You said you owed me one. I worked guys that were dangerous, and you said you owed me one. I did all these things, and all I wanted was the main event of WrestleMania. And it's fine if you don't think that is me and that I'm that caliber of a superstar, but then you need to fire me. Because I do not want to be here, and I do not want to be anything less. I will go somewhere else, and I will get more over because I know I can. You have shackled me. You have creatively stifled me. You have made this a very toxic environment. I no longer want to be here. I said, it boggles my mind how Daniel Bryan has not figured into your plans to be in the main event of WrestleMania, because this is his year. Just like 2 years ago, it was my year, and I was white hot, just like he is now. And what did you do? You fed me to this guy. And I pointed right at Hunter. And Vince was just like, this is the concussion talking. I can't believe you're saying any of this. You're in the main event. It is a main event. You're wrestling Triple H. And I turned to Hunter and I said, all due respect, I do not need to wrestle you. You need to wrestle me. I do not want to wrestle you. I seriously resent you for not putting me over 3 years ago when you should have. The day of my wedding, I got a FedEx in the mail, and it was my termination papers. I was fired.
You were fired.
I was fired. So take that, everyone who says I need to be, I'm a quieter on Twitter.
You're a real quieter.
I was fired.
On your wedding day.
On my wedding day. Very calculated and very deliberate, and as much as I kind of chuckled at it and didn't let it affect my day, I was like, once again, you pushed too far. You pushed the wrong guy.
Well, he's not the first guy to get screwed on his wedding day.
Oh, my gosh. That's true.
I haven't heard that many F-bombs dropped in I don't know how long.
I hear his passion.
No, I hear that too. But I got to tell you, if his attitude there is even one half representation of what he was in the office behind the scenes with Vince, I got to tell you, if I were his employer, I would probably fire him too.
Yeah.
I do have to kind of think that getting fired through the mail is a little bit cowardice. But I think the worst way I ever got fired from a job was I got fired over the, well, it wasn't even actually over the telephone. It was via voicemail.
Oh, wow.
I got fired by voicemail from a radio station I was working for.
I mean, I think what you hear in his podcast, and this is coming from someone that comes from corporate world, but at the same time, huge wrestling fan, and also CM Punk fan.
Yeah.
What I hear is someone that is too big for their britches. and they know.
Absolutely.
And that's what kind of frustrates me a little bit. I mean, I understand his resentment, I understand his anger, and and where his anger is led him to, and where it's directed to at the same time. That's pretty obvious.
Yes.
But to go into office and say, "I don't need to wrestle you. You need to wrestle me."
That's really arrogant.
Yeah, you're still the employee. Let's not forget that big common denominator of the fact that you are still just an employee. You're not the employer. And no matter what you think you are doing right, it's okay to express your opinion when in two situations: when your opinion's asked for, and when you need to actually say it, but there's a right way of saying it.
Absolutely.
If this conversation happened this way, and I think there's three people that know the truth, and we've only heard one of those sides of it, and I'll tell you the other side, which he didn't go too much in detail of it. But coming from CM Punk's standpoint, I think he handled it the wrong way. As far as termination goes, you walked out.
Yeah, I believe that letter was probably nothing more than a sheer formality. Right. It was a way of bringing professional closure to a problem that already existed. I am sure somebody in the human resources department of the WWE had the conversation of, well, he's walked out. We really don't think he's coming back, but I tell you what, let's cover our bases just to be sure that we know he's separated from the company. Let's send him this letter of termination. And then there's no question then.
Right.
I don't think there was any question he wasn't going to come back. But this way, WWE management has the ability of keeping their head above water, maintaining a bit of professional pride, and also sending a message to the other wrestlers, or not just to the wrestlers, but to the employees overall, saying, "Hey, we're in control. We are the ones who run the business, not you. And if you run amok on us or anything like that, guess what? You're out of here. Nobody is indispensable." And I think that was a wonderful message to send to the troops. Demoralizing, maybe, but once in a while you've got to set the example. Now, I'm not I'm not just kind of blowing smoke out of my butt here. For a fact, Chip, of a business that I worked for a long time, and I know while I was there, I would consider myself fairly essential to the organization, but never once in the 5 years that I worked there did I ever use that as leverage.
Right.
It never happened, nor would it. I'm just not that kind of guy. Maybe negotiating for a salary. I didn't even do that there, actually. But I'm not saying I would never do anything like that, but because I might use it to negotiate for a salary. But to sit right down in the management's office and, like you said, go at it from the angle that he was. If you don't need to, I don't need to wrestle you. You need to wrestle me. Yeah, that's a bit much.
I mean, it's corporate America. You just can't do it. I mean, I've done it, and it didn't turn out well for me. And that was at a point where I was working for a corporate business to where I thought I was irreplaceable, kind of like where CM Punk is, and it never ends well.
It's a humbling experience.
It's a very humbling experience because then you quickly realize
I wasn't that big after all.
Exactly, because you quickly realize they can move on.
Oh yeah,
as much as you think you would like to.
And as public as this clip was, I haven't heard any CM Punk chants at the shows since it came out.
I mean, well, there's only been one show.
No, there's been two.
No.
Wasn't SmackDown taped after this came out?
No.
Last week's SmackDown?
No.
Oh.
Because SmackDown's recorded on Tuesday. This came out on a Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So all we had
the Tulsa audience last night was well behaved then.
Yeah, which is really cool, by the way.
Yes.
Raw was in our hometown, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes. They had a good show.
Yeah.
They had a good turnout. Well, they always have a good turnout.
Always a good turnout.
Always a good turnout here in Tulsa. Wrestling, this has been I think we could give the Carolinas a run for their money as far as turnout for wrestling events are concerned. I wonder when they're finally going to put a pay-per-view here in Tulsa.
Never.
Oh, why not?
Never.
Why not?
It'd be.
They can't say it's the size of the arena because I've seen them do pay-per-views in arenas as big as ours.
It's not the arena. It's not the arena. I think it's the market. think it's
What
America.
the hell is wrong with America?
I think we have a better chance of seeing CM Punk return than a pay-per-view in Tulsa.
I don't know. I think we got a lot to offer the WWE.
But we haven't even seen one in Oklahoma City, let alone Tulsa. And I think we'd see one in Tulsa before.
Yeah, but when's the last time you saw Raw go to Oklahoma City?
Last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah. Well, they switch off years.
Do they?
Yeah. Because they got SmackDown. So they're there tomorrow night for SmackDown.
Huh. Okay. Well, so much for my theory.
I like your theory.
But we have the facility.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know why in the world they wouldn't choose us to do a pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be WrestleMania. We have no place that would hold WrestleMania.
I'm just glad it's not going to be TLC because that sounds like a snore fest already.
They're pushing it too hard. I think they are pushing it way too hard.
They're pushing it too hard for the matches that are so predictable.
I think they're getting it. I think they're really starting to look desperate.
Yeah. But anyways, going back on topic here because I want to go to the Vince McMahon interview that he did with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay.
And I now applaud Steve Austin on how he did the interview, how he conducted the interview. He was very much no holds barred.
Yes.
From the aspect of he asked the tough questions. In fact, one of the questions that Steve Austin asked was about Macho Man Randy Savage.
Uh-huh.
And so he goes, Macho Man Randy Savage, it's already a tragedy that he's not already in the Hall of Fame, but are we going to see him in the Hall of Fame? And Vince McMahon, without hesitation, said, oh, absolutely. He'll be in the Hall of Fame.
All right.
And so Steve Austin said, in the next 10 years, or he goes, soon. He goes, I'm not going to say this year, but you'll see him in the Hall of Fame. So I think that was pretty cool. The fact that
he really put Vince on the line on that, huh?
Oh yeah. And so one of the other conversations that he had was about CM Punk. And so Steve Austin worded it correctly just to gauge where Vince McMahon was. And so he goes, so I'm just going to throw this simple yes or no question, and you just let me know how you want to handle this conversation.
Right.
CM Punk situation, yes or no? Do you want to talk about it, basically? Yes or no? And he said, yeah, I'll talk about it. And the first thing that Vince McMahon acknowledges is the fact that he wanted to throw an apology out to CM Punk.
Really?
And his apology was to the fact that as a corporation, it is sometimes really hard to control when things happen. And he's referencing his firing on his wedding day.
Oh.
And so he acknowledged the fact that the paperwork probably got to him on his wedding day, and Vince McMahon actually said, "I'm sincerely sorry about that. That was not malicious. That was not intended on.
Yeah,
it just in a big corporate world, things happen, and this one is just a freak situation. And so I applaud Vince McMahon on that. I
could see that being believable.
I do too. I absolutely believe it. I mean, I'm sure CM Punk won't, but I'm sure from a corporate standpoint, it makes sense. I mean, things happen, and you can never predict how the mail service is going to arrive.
Oh man, that's the truth.
Exactly. So for me, it's believable. Vince McMahon is very much he doesn't go into detail, and he says that he won't. But all he thinks is, how CM Punk kind of handled himself. He wasn't the biggest fan of.
Now, maybe it probably wasn't a good idea for them to include that poem, "Roses are red, violets are blue, you're getting married, and we don't need you."
Is that what's in the termination paperwork? Do you have the
maybe that
inside
wasn't a
scoop
good
on
idea.
that?
Do what?
Do you have the inside scoop on that?
I wish I did.
So Vince McMahon, he later went into detail about how he really hopes that someday the relationship can be rekindled, that the bridges aren't completely burned.
Well, that leads me to a question I was going to ask you a while ago. We've seen this happen before between Vince McMahon and the Ultimate Warrior, between Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin, between Vince McMahon and you fill in the blank. Do you think there will come a day when he and CM Punk will kiss and make up?
Yes.
I do too.
Absolutely. And that's Vince McMahon brought it up. he even said, he goes, listen, he goes, I am not the type of guy that holds grudges.
Evidently not.
He goes, Steve, we had our issues. And we were able to make up. He goes, Hulk Hogan and I. He goes, I think we've won about 12 rounds. But yet he's still back at WB. Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart. The names are endless on people that you would never thought you'd see back at WBE again, but end up coming back. And
or showing up who swore they'd never be there, like Sting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, so I applaud Vince McMahon from that standpoint, the fact that he's always willing, and he said this, I can't quote it, but this is his terminology that he used. He goes, most of the time, my ego is a little bit bigger than it needs to be. And that's what he said. He goes, but sometimes I have to put my ego aside and look at what's best for business.
Now, there's a familiar slogan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the reality air.
You think that was a tease for something upcoming?
No. I don't. Only because of the fact that this interview was too real. Vince McMahon was too honest, too open.
And it pains me to say this, to a great deal it pains me to say this, but I think Stone Cold has already set himself up with a pretty good reputation of some fairly decent journalistic practices. He actually runs a straight show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite podcasts he did was with Paul Heyman. And the Paul Heyman one is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this one was very good. And Steve Austin even said, speaking of the CM Punk situation, he can only speak from experience. Him leaving WBE back in 2005, I think it was, when he was asked to do a favor for Brock Lesnar, and he said, fuck you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, where was my bleeper?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay.
That was his words.
Well, that's you were quoting directly.
Yeah, I was quoting directly from Steve Austin. And
Steve cusses?
A little bit.
Really?
On occasion.
That's a good thing he doesn't drink beer.
That's true. He only cusses on the day's end of why. And he took his ball and he went home. And he said that was the worst decision he has ever made. And so he hopes that somehow, some way, CM Punk's able to find a way as well.
And I think he will eventually. I'm just kind of wondering how long. And this has got to make for some interesting dinner conversations between him and AJ.
Oh my goodness!
Can you imagine what their dinner conversations are like? What'd you do at the office today, hon?
It reminds me in the husband and wife. So this one doesn't really stand close to it. But back when Brett left WBE and his brother Owen was still there, I can only imagine how awkward it must have been for Owen.
And Owen was pretty much a team player, so he really had to walk a line because he had to walk the line between being a team player for the company or being a team player for the family.
Actually, inside source told me he actually asked for his release. He did. Yeah, WBE didn't grant it.
Well, see that. Well, that just solidifies what I was just saying. Then, I was not able to detect that in its performance, and there are a lot of employees within the WWE. Well, maybe I shouldn't focus this at them in particular because this is true in show business in general. If you're having a bad run with one of your employees and you have a professional show that they're showing up to perform in week in, week out, the employee either performs less quality just to get back at you, or they're so distracted they can't perform. And I never saw that once in Owen Hart.
I agree.
So to that extent, yes, I'll stand by what I said. He was definitely a team player when it came to the corporation.
I almost made a horrible joke, but I'm not even.
Oh, go ahead. I know it's got to be an Owen Hart death joke, but go ahead.
I was going to say there was one time he fell short, but that's horrible.
Oh, that sounds. Let me write this.
I feel horrible. Please no emails. Please no emails, no tweets.
Hey, listen, if the Ferguson line doesn't get us any emails,
yeah, it's true.
Don't worry.
That's true.
You have nothing to worry about. Oh man, that has to be. I think I've hit a new low. I think I've hit a brand new low.
Why is that?
Well, with that Ferguson line.
Oh, okay. All right.
But as far as the current state of the WWE is concerned, how much longer are they going to carry this anonymous general manager gimmick?
WrestleMania.
Oh, no. Tell me it's not going to last that long.
I think
we're talking what, until April?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think before WrestleMania.
Oh, for goodness sake. I hope they're not planning on selling any more subscriptions.
I'm sure they hope so. In Vince McMahon's words, he's very proud of where the WWE Network is.
Well, if I were facing that many investors, I would be saying the same thing too.
Of course, makes sense. I don't know. I mean, none of us were okay with the idea.
No.
In fact, I've heard stories and I've read stories now about how Raw was rewritten right before the show aired on that Monday. Because of the fact that I don't think the anonymous general manager was even in the works until that Monday afternoon.
Well, what sent them into panic mode that would cause them to go that direction?
I have no clue. No clue. In fact, I even heard something today on where, we mentioned last week's show on the Survivor Series where Sting was, the one that appeared. Randy Orton was backstage. You know who else was backstage with plans on appearing?
Who?
Rey Mysterio.
Really?
In fact, that was actually
another guy who's come up short.
Exactly. Yeah, very short. But that was stamped that he was supposed to be on the Survivor Series card at some point.
Huh.
But it never came
I
to
knew
fruition.
about Orton being back there.
Right.
I was not aware of Rey Mysterio being back there.
Yeah. MLW Radio, which is hosted by Conan, who's close friends Rey Mysterio.
Uh-huh.
He said that's the only reason he watched the Survivor Series pay-per-view is because he kept expecting Rey Mysterio because he knew that he was supposed to appear on the show in some manner.
Well, now, how old is Rey Mysterio now?
30, late 30s?
I think he's older than that.
Let me look.
Okay. Because I know Rey Mysterio has been around for, he's been wrestling for years.
Since the early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s.
At the minimum.
But he started back when he was 16.
Okay. Now, for the first time in his life, his age is probably a larger number than his actual height in inches, I would imagine. Then again, my shoe size is a larger number than his height in inches. So I can't really say much about that.
39.
He's 39, really? I thought he would be older than that.
Actually, December 11th. So he has a birthday coming up, or he'll be 40 years old.
Oh, lordy, look who's 40.
Yeah.
Okay, that I'll buy. But with him being that old, well, I can't really say that because we have more than a few wrestlers who are in their 40s or getting close to 40.
That's true.
But that is getting in the twilight of their years.
A twilight. I think he's already done.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the stuff that he did from a physical standpoint, his knees are horrible. His back's horrible. I mean, he can't perform at the same level anymore.
And no need in going to why he wears a mask because I've seen him without it.
He looks like a child.
His face is horrible.
Oh, my goodness.
And, one thing I was watching last night, Monday Night's Raw, I really was not aware how many tag teams they have. They've got a lot of tag teams.
Okay.
They've got a lot of them. Let's see, they've got the Usos, they've got Golden Stardust, they've got
Miz and Sandow.
Miz and Sandow, the current champions. Mizdow. But that's they had that big tag team tournament last night, and I didn't realize until I saw that how many tag teams there were. I don't remember them ever having this many all at one time.
The little bull.
The little bull, La Torito.
Yes.
Yeah. They've got them. The New Day, of course.
I think we'll get ready to see the Accession from NXT coming up on there.
A lot of tag teams. So we got some shining hope there. And now the Bunny and Adam Rose have been teaming up.
Oh, good Lord! Get rid of that.
Well, I think
they're
going to be getting rid of that here not too long. It's better than the Raw general manager, though.
No, actually, I'd be okay with the anonymous general manager over the Bunny. In fact, prediction: the Bunny will be the anonymous GM.
Oh, you're probably right. I mean, beforehand it was Hornswoggle, so that only stands to reason. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Stay tuned next week for this other show we call SCI.